Hello, today I'm going to do a video. This is Transformed by His Truth. I'm going to do a video about Biden betraying Israel and rewarding Hamas. By betraying Israel, they pretty much reward Hamas because they want a ceasefire that will give Hamas time to regroup, rearm, and re-prepare to continue to try and destroy Israel, the Israeli people. So I'm going to read this article, and then there's a short video in there by Senator Graham. That's pretty good. So this article is from Newsweek, so it's not biased either way. Normally it's more Democratic leaning, but in this instance it's actually talking about some good stuff. So let's go to the article. Biden just betrayed Israel and rewarded Hamas. It's time to bring Trump back to the White House. We thought that President Joe Biden's disastrous withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan was the worst foreign policy debacle we would see in his presidency. We were wrong. President Biden's decision to withhold vital military resources from our ally, Israel, in the midst of a defensive war against Iran's barbarous proxy, Hamas, takes the prize. Israel has had two goals for all of its actions since Hamas swarmed across the border and massacred 1,200 Israelis on October 7th, end the existential threat of Hamas and bring the hostages home. The overwhelming majority of Americans support Israel in this war and support Israel going into Rafah to finish the job. Rafah is the last stronghold where Hamas leaders are hiding deep underground in tunnels surrounded by hostages, perhaps including the Americans still being held captive. If Israel doesn't finish off Hamas in Rafah, the terrorist organization will live to fight again, soon, funded as always by Iran. Hamas will be able to rebuild and act on its brazen pledge to repeat the massacre of October 7th again and again and again. Meanwhile, the hostages, men, women, and children who have been tortured in those tunnels for more than 6 months now, will never see the sun or their families' faces again. President Obama's Secretary of Defense Bob Gates famously said that Joe Biden has been wrong on every major foreign policy decision over 40 years. Biden's current stance proves Gates' point, since it is wrong in so many ways, both practical and moral. Biden claims to be concerned about the safety of Palestinian civilians in Rafah, but he is preventing Israel from accessing the targeting technology that makes it easier to eliminate Hamas fighters without harming civilians. Reports indicate that Biden is holding back a previously delayed shipment of 3,500 bombs, including guided bombs, that were already loaded onto Air Force planes to go to Israel and have now been offloaded. Biden's quote-unquote pause on these arms shipments to Israel affects Israel's operational readiness, prolongs the conflict, and signals weakness to the enemies of America and Israel. It also sends a dangerous signal of disunity. The White House hid these decisions from Congress, which authorized the military aid and overwhelmingly wants to see Israel win this war. Finally, after months of privately pressuring Israel and threatening to withhold military resources, Biden has brought everything out in public, taking diplomatic and military pressure off Hamas and jeopardizing any hope of negotiating a return of the hostages. What possible calculation could move an American president to choose Hamas terrorists and their Iranian masters over our key ally and vital security partner, Israel? Clearly, it's about election year politics. Democrats are terrified of the poor polling at the top of their ticket. Biden's decision to tie Israel's hands at this critical moment to win votes from the growing contingent of anti-Semites and anti-Israel fanatics in his party is the most despicable and dangerous action of his presidency. Where are the Jewish Democrats on this? Some who have tried to be a voice of reason on that side of the aisle have faintly protested this latest betrayal. Those farther to the left have lavished praise on Biden for his pleasant words and been silent about his vicious actions. The worst of the lot are shouting jubilantly that he is on their side as they stage violent protests against Israel and threaten Jews. None of them are holding Biden to account for the atrocious course he has chosen. There is an alternative to the weakness, the two-faced talk, and the kowtowing to Iran that we are seeing from the White House today. President Donald Trump had a very different record when it comes to Israel. His policies strengthened our alliance with Israel and strengthened Israel. our true friend and partner in meaningful ways. He always had Israel's back in speech and in action. He guided Israel and Arab and Muslim states in the historic Abraham Accords and helped them begin acting on the promise of peace and prosperity in the region that those accords make possible. We don't need another 4 years of Joe Biden. Neither the U.S. nor Israel can afford another 4 years of his terrible choices. It's time to bring Donald Trump back to the White House. That's the end of that article. Whether it's Donald Trump or any other Republican, at least will be on the side of Israel and won't be cowarding out and taking away arms that they need, which they probably already paid for, and making really bad decisions. So the problem is if we're at war when the elections take place, there will be no election because there are no elections during wartime. So I don't know what the side of Biden would do in order to continue to keep him in office. I don't know how far they would go, but I wouldn't put it past them to make sure that we're at war so that he can stay in office. So we're going to listen to a quick video. It's only 42 seconds by Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, and talking about Israel. So let me put this on and let you hear this.
Israel is in a fight for its life. That the reason so many Palestinians have been killed is because Hamas has command centers under hospitals. Hamas uses the Palestinian people as human shields. Don't reward their behavior. What you're doing is you're saying Hamas has put Palestinians in the crosshairs of Israel, so stand Israel down? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my friggin' life, is that you tell the person who's about to be wiped off the map, you got to slow down because your enemy is making it hard on the Palestinian people to survive because they choose to put them in harm's way. That is backwards. Israel is...
Okay, agreed. It is backwards. And the problem is you're dealing with terrorists. They don't want to live side by side with Israel. They don't want a two-state solution. They want the elimination of the Jewish people. It's in the Palestinian Charter. It's what the terrorists know and fight for, and it's what they'll continue to try and do with their attacks on Israel, who's just trying to defend herself and exist as a nation. Since 1948, the very first day in 1948, May 6th, I think it was May 6th, 1948, when Israel became a nation, she had to fight off an Egyptian attack. So, you've got them fighting off these attacks ever since and trying to exist in a Middle East that's all Arab except for Israel. It's ridiculous that they want just that little sliver of land, but it's because it's biblical. It's God's land that he chose to give to the Israeli people, to the Israelites, and now to the Jews. So the enemy of God is always going to fight against what God has put in place. And so you have to see that, you don't have to see, but it would be wise to see who is really at fault in this situation. Israel is trying to survive and exist as a nation. Israel has given us scientific, agricultural, and all kinds of other wonderful discoveries and turned a wasteland and a desert wasteland into a thriving agricultural beauty of a land. And what happened when Israel gave Gaza back to the Palestinian people in 2006? The terrorists turned it into a terrorist enclave, going even as far as to dig up sewer lines so they could make bombs to throw at Israel. So you've got people that they don't want a two-state solution. They don't want to live side by side in peace with Israel. They will never stop trying to attack Israel because their whole ideology is the elimination of the Jews. People need to understand that so that they understand what Israel is fighting for, and how just because Israel has a bigger and better army doesn't make what the other people are doing right. It means that Israel has the ability and the capability, because of God himself, to defend herself with the Iron Dome system, which is an awesome system that seeks out and destroys missiles and rockets in the air before they reach Israel, where if they didn't have the Iron Dome, Israel would have been probably bombed and destroyed a long time ago. But because they don't have as many attacks on them because of the Iron Dome system, people seem to think that Israel isn't being attacked and isn't being, people aren't trying to destroy her. But the fact is is you've got an age-old fight between Abraham and Sarah's son Isaac and Abraham and Hagar's son Ishmael. Back when Abraham was alive, when Sarah was 90 years old, God promised that He would bring them a son and name him Isaac, and he would take over all the inheritances and all the land and everything that God blessed Abraham with. Well, Abraham and Sarah didn't want to wait for God's will. They went over and had Abraham sleep with Hagar, a maiden from another race, and they produced the son and named him Ishmael. So you have Ishmael born um, Ishmael born first, which usually the firstborn son inherits all the land and all the blessings, but in this case it was out of God's will, so the godly blessings and inheritances don't go to Ishmael because he was born out of God's will. Then finally Sarah and Abraham had Isaac, the promised son, and he received all the blessings and the inheritances of the firstborn spiritual son. So what you have now, well, so once that happened, they cast Hagar and Ishmael out, but they did it by giving them land. They gave them not land. They gave them livestock. They gave them food. They gave them people. They gave them a whole new way to set up a whole new race of people. And so they went off, and that's what they did. They became the Arab race. But the problem is because the Arabs know that Abraham was the father of Ishmael. They think that they're supposed to have all the land in the Middle East. And that's not the promise of God. But God promised the land and the inheritance to the promised son Isaac. So you have Isaac, the father of the Jews, and you have Ishmael, the father of the Arabs. And that explains why the Arabs have continually attacked Israel and any Israeli interests around the world, and why they can't stand America, because America, at least until this president, stood up and was Israel's ally and would help defend her. So people need to get the right information so that they don't ignorantly get involved in these protests and riots and things that are going on with people that aren't even from the schools. A lot of those people are bussed in from who knows where, and a lot of them are middle-aged men who know how to incite riots, and who are, some of them are probably terrorists, and they're just laughing at these students who are going along like they're just eating up all this propaganda and not even caring what they're standing up for. So people need to understand that Israel, since her beginning, has tried to survive and tried to exist as any other country has had the right to do. And so before you go getting mad at Israel and saying that she's she's attacking these poor Palestinian people, those Palestinian people voted in the terrorists as their government in Gaza. They voted for the terrorists to become their government. So unfortunately they're reaping what they sowed. I don't think it's right that innocent civilians are ever killed, but in wartime there are acceptable losses, and there are civilian casualties in every war. It's ridiculous that they're expecting Israel not to bomb and not to try and get rid of the terrorists, even though they're hiding under hospitals and schools like a bunch of cowards, and hiding with the hostages around them, hoping that Israel won't bomb them, and knowing that Israel will not bomb innocent civilians if they can help it. Israel has provided 40,000 tents for the people in Rafah to exit Rafah so that they don't get killed. And they've I lost my train of thought. Anyway, and they drop flyers and let the people know when they're going to attack so that people can get out of there, so that there are less civilian casualties, because Israel is a compassionate, caring nation. It's not out to get anybody. It's out to survive and to exist. And if people would just understand that, although it's biblical that the whole world is going to turn against Israel, and that's what's happening, and that's what we see happening now, is America has turned her back on Israel. These other countries have the Arab nations have always not liked Israel, and even the ones that are at peace with her are only at peace because the war that's going to come where the nations come against Israel, all the nations around her come against her, isn't ready to happen yet. It'll happen. It's probably going to happen shortly because we've got everybody coming against Israel. So anyway, that's the video for today. Hopefully it helps you understand where America is coming from and where Israel is coming from, and how we need to understand what's really going on in order to see what's happening here. So I hope you have a good day, and I hope this helped you to understand what's going on. Thank you.